All right, so imagery rules here. We're going to do finished product first. I've recreated the Sombra teleport beacon from Overwatch. So if I click a button, I can throw out a teleport beacon, and another button lets me teleport directly to that spot. The one thing I made sure to do is I made sure that you cannot get into a situation where you would teleport into geometry using this. So if I throw it out and it's in a situation where I would interfere with any of the geometry, I don't go there. So thank you very much for tuning in, and let's get started. So here we go. So starting out, I have just this basic scene here. Nothing really special in it. I have a few boxes that have rigid bodies on them and are set to be active, and then I have a couple static things that I can interact with, and then the walls and the floor. So what I'm going to do here first, I've imported for my standard assets, the first-person controller. If you don't know how to do that, go to Assets, Import Package, and import the Characters package. Inside the standard assets, you can find characters, and then first-person characters, and I'm using the one with the rigid body attached to it. There's an argument for using the one with the character controller instead of the rigid body, but I like rigid body physics, so that's the one I'm using. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to be able to throw a grenade, which we're going to represent with just a little tiny rectangular solid, and then have that exist in the world. We can walk around, and then at a certain time we can teleport ourselves directly to that grenade. For the most part, it's not too bad. We're just changing our transform, but one of the things that we have to take into account is we want to make sure that we're not putting the grenade anywhere where if we teleport to there, we would be stuck inside geometry, because that would be a problem. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create my little prefab for the grenade. So to do this, I'm going to go to Game Object, 3D Object, and I'm going to create a new cube. I'm going to scale this down about like that, maybe make it a little thinner, like that. I'm going to rename this Teleport Beacon. All right, and I'm going to give it its own material too. So I'm going to, if you haven't already, you can create a materials folder. So you can do that by, in the assets folder, just right-clicking create and choose folder. In this materials folder, I'm going to right-click, choose create, pardon me, and I'm going to create a material. I'm going to call this beacon material. I'm going to make it, so Sombra is all about purple, so I'm going to make this beacon purple here to match her. I'm not going to make it emissive, but I did make it transparent. And in order to be able to see through it, I'm going to bring the opacity of my color down a bit. And I will put this on my teleport beacon right there. And if I go around in the world, you can see I can kind of already see through it. I want it to give off light too, so rather than using the emission as part of the material, I'm going to right-click on my teleport beacon, go to light, and I'm going to, no, not a directional light. I want to instead add a point light. So light, point light. And I'm going to make the color purple as well. All right, cool. So now that little beacon is going to give off a little bit of light when it goes out in the world. That way it'll be easier to see. Now, next thing I'm going to do is in my assets folder here, I'm going to right-click, create, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this Prefabs, and I will add my teleport beacon to the Prefabs. All right, cool. Now I'll delete that beacon from the scene because I don't need it in there from the start, and it's time to get to the actual scripting. So I'm going to create a new folder for my scripts. So folder, scripts, and then inside the scripts folder, I'm going to go to create C# script. And I'm going to call this teleport beacon. All right, I'm going to open this up in Visual Studio. The coding that's going on here, like I said, isn't that complex. The main thing that we want to do is just make sure that when we throw the beacon can't go anywhere that we can't go, so that when we decide to teleport to it, we don't create some weird issue where we're teleporting into the geometry. So let's get this going here. All right, cool. So I'm going to see if I can embiggen this anymore. Nope, this is as big as it gets. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first create a couple public global variables. The first one I want to do is I want to make a reference to the camera. So I'm going to do public camera, and I'm going to call it camera. It's not going to like that I'm making a reference to the camera, so don't worry. We'll fix that. And then I want to also make a reference to the teleport grenade itself. So we'll do public game object teleport beacon. And then let's see, what else do we need to do? We need to know what the current grenade is so that we can know its position in space. So public game object current beacon. What else do we need to do? Let's do a place that we're firing it from. So we'll do public transform fire point. Then let's make an amount for how far we're throwing it. So we'll do public float grenade throw force. I keep saying grenade and beacon. It's essentially the same thing. Then I'm going to make a Boolean to test whether or not there's currently a grenade out. So this one can be private. This one doesn't need to be public. Private bool grenade out. Okay, cool. Now I want this grenade out, I want this to be false by default, so I'm going to set it to false. In the start method, I'm going to set the camera to be equal to camera.main, capital C camera.main, so that it's always going to be set to the main camera. We'll only have an issue if we don't have a camera in the scene. Now in the update method, I want to do something if we click I'm going to use the left mouse button. And so the left mouse button is going to be to throw the teleport beacon. So if input.get mouse button, and I want to use mouse button down. Mouse button is if you're holding it, mouse button up is if you let go, and mouse button down is if you just press it down. I'm going to use the left mouse button, so I'll use a 0 here. And then inside, I want to check if we already have a grenade out. So if there isn't a grenade out, then I want to create a new grenade. So I'm create a new grenade. Now, if you don't know anything about pseudocode, I left a comment here specifically as pseudocode because I want to kind of just create some logic for myself here that I can use to follow. And if you get good at doing this pseudocode, then you can write what you want to happen and then just look up how to make that happen. And then you can do anything in Unity, really. The sky's the limit. If you just know what you want to happen, the logic behind it, and the order in which you want it to happen, then you can just look up how to do this. So in this case, you would look up how to create something. And in Unity, if we're not using an object pooling system, we're going to create it by using the instantiate command. So instantiate, and instantiate takes 3 arguments: the object that we're creating, the position in space where we're creating it, and the rotation at which we want it to be created. So I want to create a teleport beacon, and the position I want to create it is going to be the fire point dot position, and the rotation I'm going to put as quaternion dot nope, I'm going to give it the same rotation as the camera, because if I have the camera, like, say here, I know you can't see my cursor, maybe you can, I don't know, there we go. If I have the camera, say, right here, and the user is looking up, I want the grenade to have rotation equal to that, like that. So I'm going to do camera dot rotation, or dot transform dot rotation. Cool. And then I'm going to semicolon there to close my thought. And then what I want to do next, oh yeah, so I want this grenade that I'm creating right now to be that current grenade. So I'm going to say current beacon, sorry, I keep saying the 2 different things. Current beacon is equal to instantiate, all of that. And then I want to make sure that I'm instantiating it as a game object. This line, or that last thing, isn't necessarily needed, but it's a good idea to do just in case you have any issues. When you're instantiating or creating something, you want to make sure that you're saving it as the right kind of thing. Okay, and then I want to just, well, no, I guess I don't need to do that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add some force to the beacon. So I'm going to do current beacon dot get component. In order to add force, let me do my pseudocode here so you guys can see that. So add force to the beacon to launch it. So I want to do current beacon dot get component and rigid body. If we're adding force, Unity's rigid body physics system is usually a fine way to do it. There are other ways that you can add force to the object. You can add velocity to it. We're going to use add force. You can add velocity to it. You can change its transform by a specific vector. A lot of different ways that you can do stuff. I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to grab its rigid body dot add force, and here we need to know the force that we're going to add. And I want it to go straight out from the camera. So I'm going to do camera dot transform dot forward, which is forward from the camera, and then the force kind. I'm going to do force mode dot impulse. Impulse is just a force that's given at one time in one direction. Okay, and then the last thing I want to do is once I do that, I want to set grenade out to be true. Okay, cool. So I'm going to save my script here, and there's a few things I need to set up. So if I go back into Unity, all right, so I'm going to look at my prefab here, and I think I forgot to put a rigid body on my teleport beacon so that we can affect it by physics like that. So I'm going to go to my prefabs, teleport beacon, and I'm going to add a component, and I'm going to add a rigid body. I do want this to be affected by gravity, and I want, as a constraint, I want to freeze its rotation on the X and Z axes. I don't care about its rotation on the Y axis because in Unity's three-dimensional space, Y is up and down. So rotation on the Y axis would just rotate the object itself, but I don't want it to go kind of left or right, pitch or yaw. Okay. I'm going to go to my rigid body FPS controller, and I'm going to attach that script I just made. I'm going to minimize some of these things here that I don't want to be working with. Okay, so camera, I'm already going to set that during the script. The teleport beacon is going to be the prefab. Current beacon is going to be empty for now. And fire point. So let's create a fire point here. So here's my rigid body FPS controller. As a child of the main camera, I'm going to create a new empty object, and I'm going to call this game object FirePoint. And I'm going to give this a tag so that I can, or not a tag, but a icon. That's the word I was looking for, so that I can see it in space. I'm going to put it front a little bit down from the camera. If we were using like a gun or something, we'd put this on the end of the gun. All right, I'm going to go back to my controller. I'm going to assign the fire point. And then my grenade throw force, I'm going to set to 20. Okay, so I'm going to hit run to test this out. And let's see how it works. So if I'm looking over, over here. That's not what I'm doing. For some reason it thinks, there we go. It wants my cursor to be right there. All right. So I threw it once and couldn't throw it again. Let's try that one more time here. Gonna hit play. I'll keep my cursor down, or my mouse down here this time so I don't get that weird issue. So 20 isn't a whole lot of force to be throwing out. That thing that's happening there, that has to do with the lighting of it. Let me fix that right now. So if I go to my directional light, I'm just gonna turn off shadows entirely. Well, no, that looks weird. Let's turn shadows back on. Let's do hard shadows. Let's turn their strength down, maybe. There we go. Anyway, okay. So if I hit play, I'm still getting that weird artifact. It's probably because I have it transparent. All right. my laptop isn't super powerful, so I probably shouldn't have tried to do the transparent beacon while I'm recording. So come on now. Let me make this not transparent. Or maybe not. Maybe I can't make it not transparent. All right, well, anyway. Okay, so we're able to throw it out. Pardon me. My force is probably too low. I'm going to change this to 100. Now, the next thing I want to happen is I want to be able to go directly where it is when I press another button. So I'm going to go back to my script here. And I'm going to use the right mouse button for this. I'm going to say if input.get mouse button up, or not up, but down. And the right mouse button is mouse button 1. Then what I want to do is I want to check to see if there's currently a grenade out. So check if a grenade is out. And I'm going to say if grenade out. Then I'm going to create this kind of offset, but in general I want to move to where the beacon is. Now, if you imagine in 3D space, the center of my object, my capsule collider, which it represents my person, is right here. And if I throw it on the floor, the beacon on the floor, the center of the beacon is down here. If I teleport my exact center to its exact center, I will be in the middle of the floor. So I want to create kind of an offset so that instead of being created right where the center of the beacon is, I'm created at the center of the beacon plus a certain amount. So I'm going to be using the height of the capsule collider. So let me show you how I can do that. So, or also exactly what I mean. So if I look at my rigid body controller here, I'm going to take a look at the capsule collider. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's in green. But the capsule collider has a height to it, which is 2. I am going to set my offset to be half of that, but I'm going to make sure to do it in code in case later on I decide to change how tall the character is. So I'm going to say, I'm going to create a new float. We'll call it teleport offset. Teleport is one word. Offset. And I'm going to set this equal to get component. And the component I want to get is the capsule collider. Dot height divided by 2. All right, so I've created my offset. Vector 3, I'm going to reference where the grenade currently is. Grenade position is equal to current grenade, or current beacon, dot transform dot position. So I'm getting its position in space. And then I want to have my location be that position in space, but up a little. So I'm going to say vector 3 teleport location is equal to a new vector 3, and it is grenade position dot x grenade position dot y plus the teleport offset, and then grenade position dot z, and semicolon to end my thought. Then the very, very last thing I want to do is just move, or not the very last thing. Then the next thing I want to do is move my position to that position. So I'm going to do transform dot position is equal to teleport location. So move my character to the beacon. I want to destroy the beacon. Current beacon. I want to set it to null, so I want to make it empty. Current beacon equals null. And then I want to set grenade out to be false. Grenade out equals false. Okay, so we're almost done. This is all the scripting we need to do, and that's less than 50 lines of code. That's pretty good. So we'll go back in here into Unity. I will hit play. I'm going to... Oh, no. I've just figured something out. Anyway, okay. I'm going to throw my grenade. There it is. And then if I walk away from it, if I right-click, I go to exactly where that grenade is. So there is one issue with the script here. I don't know what I was thinking. If you go down here to Visual Studio, When we create the grenade, I don't want to give it the camera's rotation. I thought I was being clever. I wasn't. I should have just followed my notes. We want to do quaternion.identity because we're not allowing it to rotate on the X or the Z axis, which means that if the camera is tilted up, then that's always going to be tilted up, which I think was part of my issue with that weird shadow that was appearing. Okay, I'm going to save my script and pop back into Unity. Now, grenade throw force. Let's make sure one thing here really quickly. Sorry, back here. Add force. Camera.transform.forward. Oh, ha. I never actually put the grenade force in here. That's why it went out like just a teeny little like not very much at all. I forgot to multiply my grenade force. So in my script, when I press my mouse button down, when I'm adding force, I need to do camera.transform.forward and then multiply that by the grenade force. Grenade throw force. Otherwise, it's just going to go like just one unit in front of me. Okay, I'm going to save that. Pop back into Unity. Let's try this out now. That's what I get for not following my notes exactly. Thinking I can do stuff on the fly and have it work out better. All right, so I'm going to hit play. And if I throw my grenade, there we go. It's a lot more force. Then, I went right through the wall there. I'm going to turn my grenade force down. I think the grenade itself went through the wall because its collisions are set to discrete. All right, let's try this again. Now, there's still an issue where, depending on where the grenade lands, it could teleport me into something. So, like, I'm going to try to, there we go. I'm inside the geometry right now, and that's an issue. You don't want your users to see that. So I thought about how to fix this for quite a while. And like one thing I thought of that I could do is calculate where the grenade would go and then create an instance of myself there and then have that be a collider and all this stuff. It's actually a lot simpler than that. I'm going to grab my teleport beacon, bring it out here, and I'm going to put it right next to my player. Just like that. So I can kind of see them both. And I'm going to change the box collider. I'm going to make its size in the y-axis significantly larger, which is going to look super weird because we move it up. There we go. I don't want it quite that big. Let's go to like there maybe, which is going to look a little weird if we hadn't set the object to not be able to rotate on the X or the Z axes. Because when it hits something like this, it's just not going to go under it. Now, whenever you make a change to a prefab like this, you always want to make sure that you hit apply. And now I can delete this one from my scene. And if I hit play now, I should be able to teleport directly to the location and not be thrown inside of a wall. So I'm going to try to throw it in there and see how it kind of specifically didn't go in there. So here's a place that I can go, and then like, and then you go over here and do whatever you want to, and then you right click and you teleport right to that location. Okay, so this is the first in a new series. I'm curious as to how well it's going to do. Creating Sombra's teleport beacon. I have a few ideas of other things I want to do. Tracer blink and recall are both two things that I've mapped out, and I also mapped out the magnesis power from Breath of the Wild, which can actually be pretty fun. So yeah, if you have any ideas for future videos in this series, please let me know. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can find out exactly when I post a new video. Otherwise, have yourself a wonderful day.